joining again. And of course, we have our business side, and Chilean Trans, who is the chairwoman of Booking.com, and everybody knows Booking.com, but not everybody knows what success it really is. I just learned it is valued at the stock exchange with $90 billion. So it's a super unicorn, I would say. And then our friend Giovanna, long-standing member and partner of the World Economic Forum, executive vice president of the Apollo Hospitals Enterprise, and Shailendra Singh, managing director of Sequoia Capital India. Now, Prime Minister, Madam Prime Minister, let me turn to you first. And what is actually the success formula of Bangladesh? I mean, you are a country which has no real natural resources, maybe except its people. It's a little bit like Switzerland. We talked yesterday about it. But how could you achieve to be so successful economically with highest growth rate issues? What is the success story?
Well, distinguished co-chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon. And Professor Shah, first of all, I congratulate you and thank you very much, because I can see a difference here, 3 plus 3, equal size, 3 women, 3 men. I think for the first time, we are observing this, right? So thank you very much. You showed the world is something which still we couldn't do it. Yeah. In my cabinet, we don't have 50-50. Now I am feeling very encouraged. Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman made a clarion call to Bengali people to stand up for their freedom and independence. Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib believed in the power of people and loved them. And he realized that if Bangladesh is to sustain its development, it has to get connected with its neighbors and grow together. Back in February 1972, he declared in Kolkata that, I quote, we will cooperate with all in establishing peace in South Asia in order to live side by side as good neighbors and pursue constructive policies for the benefits of our people. So people actually, in his mind, people are the first, because when he liberated the country, in our country, almost 82% people were living under poverty level. So he wanted to give them a better life, poverty-free, hunger-free, prosperous life. And that's why he liberated the country. And side by side, he wanted to have friendly relationship with everybody. So our foreign policy, he declared that friendship to all, malice to none. Because his priority was economic emancipation, economic development. Well, we were actually inspired by him. Well, about me, I can tell you that, yes, I was very much involved in politics, but since my school life or college life, because in our country we had military dictatorship. So against military ruler, always we had to fight, we had to struggle for everything, for our language, for our education right, for our everything. But I never thought that I have to take such a big responsibility for a party or for a country. But as you know that my father could not complete his task. 1975, 15th August, my entire family, except my younger sister and myself, were brutally murdered. My father, mother, 3 brothers, younger one was only 10 years old, my two sister-in-laws, and also my uncle and other relatives. Almost 18 members of my family was brutally murdered. Unfortunately, my sister and myself, we were abroad that time. I say unfortunately because, as you understand, maybe who lost their nearest, dearest one, only they can understand. When you lost everybody, then it is very difficult time to pass. Well, from German, we came to India, then we took shelter here because we were not able to go back to our country because the then military dictator didn't allow us to return home. After 6 years, in my absentia, my party elected me as the president of the party. With the support of people, I returned home. And there was another thing that all the killers, they never been punished. Rather, the then government issued indemnity ordinance to protect the killer, and the killers were free, and many of them get job. They employ different country, diplomatic job, or inside they form their political party. So under that circumstance, even I returned home. I thought that my father liberated the country. He wanted to assist our people. He wanted to build up this country, a prosperous country. So taking all the risk, I thought that I should try, I should work. As because I enjoyed people's support, common people's support. That was my main strength. So from him, actually we were inspired. Then as a political party, we prepare our economic policy, if we go to power, what to do, how to work, and how to develop our country. So we were prepared. So whenever I came to power, immediately we started taking all the issues. And the basic needs of our people, like food, shelter, education, healthcare, so all these are priority. So because we had our pre-plan and our job, what to do, that way we started. So now I believe that in our neighboring country we have a very good relationship, and beside that we started cooperation with other country also. We exchange experience from other country, and that way actually I started. Inspired by my father's visionary ideas and driven by his belief in shared prosperity through shared responsibility, we continue to champion regional cooperation like BIMSTEC. There are some resourceful country. We set up a committee, then SARC, then BBIN. That means Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, connectivity. Then BCIM, Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar, BCIM corridor we have established so that we can establish the connectivity that will give a new door for us to cooperate with each other and increase our business. I look into the next decades, I think we should follow certain principles such as, first, we must strive to secure peace, stability, and harmony for every individual across our societies. We must move beyond the majority-minority mindset. Pluralism has been a strength of South Asia for countries. So we should be able to celebrate South Asia's diversities in regional, ethnicity, and language. This is fundamental. Second, We must ensure that inequality across societies do not widen in times of faster growth. Wealth creation should be inclusive and reaching down and must reaching down to the bottom millions. Whatever plan we prepare, we give priority that it should become from the grassroots level, from the rural area. They should get first priority. Less developed countries or countries should not lag behind. We must deliver to the aspiration and demands of our youth. We need to hold hands of others across South Asia through our knowledge, experience, expertise, investments. Third, mutual trust and mutual respect between all countries and countries are key. We need to get over misperceptions and false apprehensions. Bangladesh has consistently been contributing to international peace and security in global spheres, emanating from our policy of friendship to all, malice to none, as laid out by our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. This approach helped us in maintaining good relations with all countries. In 1996, Bangladesh resolved sharing of Ganges river water with India. We amicably delimited our maritime boundary with India and Myanmar. Bangladesh and India are now developing trans-boundary river navigation. We are buying power from India through inter-country grid connections. Such collaborative culture is essential across our politics, economy, and society. On the other hand, our private sectors compete with each other on a transparent and fairly basis. Fourth, we must manage our geopolitical realities through friendship and collaboration. And let us appreciate and balance regional political realities for the interest of our people. We cannot trade off long-term interest for short-term gains. Let me conclude by saying that South Asia must emerge as a connected, friendly, competitive region, always ready to build bridges with other regions. And as you know that we have refused to solve the problem. We didn't start to call with them because I always give priority that poverty is our main enemy in the region. Let us work together to eradicate poverty. So this is nothing, as because my father liberated the country, and I feel that this is my responsibility to assist my people to come out from the poverty level. Now we reduced our poverty level to, it was 41%, now it is 21%, but I have targeted plan that it should come down to 16 or 17%, but gradually less than that, so that there will be no poverty. Side by side, our growth rate. Now we achieve 8.13%. Yes, as because our economic policy, our budget, and all the development program, we always adapt it according to our country's geographical or people's condition. We considering that, then we prepare it that which area should be our priority, what we should do so that our people can be the beneficiary. Now, the purchasing power of our people increased about 1,909 US dollar. Actually, it is almost 2,000. And our people, and another thing which is most important, that the confidence building, that our people, well, there was a time, once a time, they used to think that every time they used to beg or they used to extend their hand for help. But now I try to encourage them that we should work together, you should work yourself so that you can stand by yourself and you can come out from the poverty, and we can do it. but we are encouraging them. That means they should have confidence. That is very, very important. And also, they should have the vision that what we should do, what we want to do, where we want to go. That way, I encourage our people. So, I can tell you one thing, yes, we don't have any resources, it is true. Our resources are very limited, but we have very fertile land and we have our manpower. So if I can, combine this together, I feel that we can use and we can work and we can achieve, and we did it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, if I would just summarize what you said, how I felt, I think it's the dedication you are given in the tradition of your father. It is a policy which is bottom-up, and I think the key is to give people the confidence in their own future, not only the confidence but also the means to construct their own future. I certainly will come back to you, Madam Prime Minister, but I'm turning to the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister of Singapore. And Singapore is playing a pivotal role here in the region. I ask you a very, maybe a very sensitive question. But there was a lot of discussion in the corridors about the two circles. The world will organize itself in two circles if we take the present trend, and with decoupling of supply chains and so on and so on. You mentioned yourself in the opening statement, but I want to go a little bit deeper. What you could make the argument, if you look at the growth potential, if you look at the population, that actually the ASEAN countries, together with India, could form a third circle, because you have more populations than any other region in the world, and you are already now the fastest growing region. So how do you see the positioning of ASEAN, second South Asia, in this new, possibly newly evolving global context?
Well, thank you, Professor Shaw, for your very interesting question, a very important question. But first, let me thank you for inviting me to this forum and to co-chair this summit together with such an eminent group. And we heard a most moving and inspiring account from Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina of your long journey, and how Bangladesh has developed and grown so well over the years. Now, I think your question about what can we do, indeed South Asia and Southeast Asia together will have a population of almost over 2 billion people. It has a very youthful population in most parts, very hardworking people, and that we are now getting the basics in a much better shape than it was, say, 50 years ago. So the opportunities for this development are very significant. So what can we do? And I'll say that we should look for ways in which we can more closely integrate the economies of South Asia and Southeast Asia. And I like very much Prime Minister Hasina's comment about shared prosperity and shared responsibility. I think you captured the essence of it very well. I think by working together, we can create shared prosperity. And by working together, we can come together to deal with the issues that all of us face. In fact, and I would say all over the world faces, whether it's climate change, whether it's global warming, whether it is poverty reduction. And I think the opportunities for doing that has been enhanced significantly with the fourth industrial revolution that is happening. And in particular, in this part of the world, we see very strong interest in the use of digital technology. We had a very interesting discussion yesterday on this. And India is at the forefront of this, this digital revolution, and you have a very big talent pool. And together with South Asia and the rest of Southeast Asia, I think there's a lot that we can do together. So the question is, how can we do this? I would say first, we need to create the framework for that cooperation, to look at identify areas in which both sides have strength and build on each other's strength. And once you create that framework for cooperation, whether it's in the form of trade agreements, in the form of bilateral projects, regional projects, we can then enable our businesses to take it up and then carry out the plan into fruition. So that's one area that we can do. Second, I think we can deal with, think of how we can better make full use of the strength of our people. And that's where I think the fact that we have such a youthful population is a plus for many parts of South Asia and Southeast Asia. And what is very important for us is to really devote resources to the education of our people, from the time when they are young to even when they are adults. Because in this age of the fourth industrial revolution, being able to keep up with technological changes will be very important. In fact, when I was education minister and I used to meet our children in school, and I said, would you like to be the one to be replaced by the robots, or the one to invent and program the robot? And of course the answer is, and the kids all say, yes, we want to be the one to invent the robot and program the robot. And I believe that by focusing on education, we can allow them to do this much better. And not only to do it alone, but to do it as a team. So I was speaking to Prime Minister Modi earlier today, and as you know, he went for this hackathon. He was the guest of honor for the hackathon in Chennai. And many students from all over Asia were participating in that hackathon. And he said that, wow, he was very impressed with the number of, very many bright young people looking at how they can master the new technology. And I say, indeed, this is a great area for collaboration between South Asia and Southeast Asia. So we have to work together to see how we can enhance our education system, whether it's in programming or whether it is in technical and vocational training, or even in the very basic 10 years of, 10, 12 years of basic education, so that everyone has the fundamentals to ride on the new wave of change. Now, the other area that we can work together is, of course, making full use of the technology, because technology is not just about, it has to be human-centric. That we have to think of how we can use technology, in particular information technology, to empower our people, to enable our people, to augment the talents of our people so that we can do even better. And in that way, we can make even better use of resources. And I would say technology, not just in the IT area. I had a very interesting discussion with Prime Minister Hasina just now. I must say, I'm very impressed that the Prime Minister knows so much about agriculture. Yeah. We are talking about the new way of planting and water hyacinth, and how you're using floating vegetables, and how you cultivate without having to add fertilizer and without having to worry about irrigation, because you just floated the vegetables on the water. So these are areas, and she was explaining to me about the R&D effort that we have put in agriculture. So in every sphere of activity, if we put our minds to it, encourage our scientists to do research, development and innovation, then I think many new models, new ways of doing things can evolve, and that will allow us to meet our needs even better in the coming years. So I say let's focus on developing our people, investing in research, innovation and enterprise, and of course creating new ways of doing things. And I think Shailendra has been very much involved in this. How do you fund new businesses? Booking.com is a great example of how we make better use of existing resources, but to do it even more, to use it even better, even more intensively. And Shobana's business model, to bring healthcare to so many people is really quite a breakthrough. So in this, just in this small little circle, you see how much can be done. And of course, everyone in this room have even more ideas on what we can do together. Now, but what is very important is also to promote deeper understanding of each other and of our strengths. So in Singapore, we try very hard to do this. We have several institutes in our university. The Institute of South Asian Studies, which look at South Asia, the Institute of Southeast Asian Study, which we now have renamed Yusof Ishak Institute of Southeast Asian Study, named after our first president. And it is doing very good work to understand Southeast Asia, and now we are hoping to get them to do even closer work. Southeast Asia, South Asia, East Asia, and combining the work into, we also have an institute called the Asian Competitiveness Institute, to look at how we can build on the strengths of each other and make Asia even more competitive. Because by doing that, we can be even better in the way that we use resources, in the way that we develop and grow our people. So those are the opportunities I believe that are there. But the key is, as Prime Minister Hasina said, we need to also make sure that our businesses are able to collaborate even better. And as governments, we can help to build the bridges, build the frameworks, create the enabling environment, educate our people, invest in R&D, and encourage our businesses to adopt good practices, to collaborate with one another across borders, and we can do more together.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. If I had to write a book again on the fourth industrial revolution, I would concentrate on two areas, education and agriculture. I think we underestimate the impact of technologies on those two areas. We will have, in my opinion, a real revolution in both areas, in agriculture and in education, and that's so much needed. But Shailendra, you were mentioned, and you are at the forefront. Is the region, and I think of South Asia and Southeast Asia, is the region really embracing the fourth industrial revolution? And what would you suggest in order to go even further ahead? What is still missing, in your opinion? Not just praising. I want to hear what is missing.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Schwab. First, again, it's an honor to be here and be part of the India Summit. Honorable Prime Minister, I think your story and your progress in Bangladesh is so inspiring. Minister Heng and I have had a chance, Deputy Prime Minister, to have some discussion on this topic. And again, Singapore's examples are so inspiring. But on this topic, I feel we are very lucky that this region is broadly sort of industrializing in the new internet already in India, South Asia, Southeast Asia, in that order of magnitude. We have the world's cheapest bandwidth in this region. We have the world's most advanced payment infrastructure in this region through UPI in India and now mobile wallets in other countries. We live in an era of cloud computing where it's very easy for people to actually start businesses. We live in an era of open source where new entrepreneurs and engineers can start businesses quite easily. And then not only all that, we have these phenomena called app stores and so on and so forth, where they can distribute seamlessly around the world for very, very low cost. And so, from our standpoint, I think we live at a time where it's really extraordinarily easy for founders to start and grow companies. And there's a very wide market locally in this region, which hasn't existed in the past. So we just feel like it's a really incredible time period for India, South Asia, Southeast Asia, all of these regions, and we see thriving innovation across sectors, and especially 2 or 3 sectors come to mind. one of which is the first and most important is financial services, financial inclusion, that is enabled through the Aadhaar, eKYC, UPI in India, and other similar efforts in the other markets through the wallets that are growing rapidly in Indonesia and in other countries, and bKash in Bangladesh, and so on and so forth. And this is really, we think, very powerful, because hundreds of millions of people who did not have access to financial services in the past are now, data is being generated on their financial history, transactions, and so on and so forth. And then, credit can get enabled, micro insurance products are coming to the market, and so on and so forth. So we feel like that's a very big enabler for big social impact. The second, as you rightly pointed out, we think engineering is a core strength, especially here in India. Like the fact that we produce, amongst the world's largest engineers, and I think other countries in the region probably should try to emulate that and maybe over-invest in that. And from our vantage point, we think in the fourth industrial revolution, the access to high caliber engineering talent is going to be a great source of competitive advantage for nations in the next 10, 20 years. And really, India will rate a lot more on that, in the next several years. And I think the last is all over this region, there are tens of millions of small and medium enterprises. And I think the most, one of the exciting new waves we see is these small and medium enterprises are starting to adopt technology. So they're beginning to start using some software as a service products from the App Store. They're beginning to use digital payments. They're on various platforms. Kirana stores there are new software platforms that are trying to aggregate Kirana stores. There are software platforms trying to aggregate pharmacies. There are software platforms for small clinics, medical clinics. There are platforms for hyperlocal services like plumbers and carpenters and so on and so forth. So across all tens of millions of SMEs, I think are getting their first flavor or touch of technology in this region. And I think that's another very, very big drivers of enablers in the form of technology are impacting society very positively. What can be done better? I think it's still day zero. And we are super early. And I think, we are just beginning to have an early flavor for what technology can do. I think we are truly leapfrogging because most of these nations here were not so industrialized in the past. And I think that is extremely exciting, and lots more to be done. So
thank you. Giovanna, you are a relatively large company. You are a large company. And everybody prizes startups, young generation, and so on. I heard there is a certain morosity in large companies because they see so much new competition coming up. They feel also that they have to deal more with bureaucracy and so on. How do you feel? I mean, coming here since 35 years, I have seen one change. There was quite some hostility at the beginning when I came here against business as such, to express it maybe in a polite way. How do you see the situation today?
Well, first of all, I think that these are great forums to debate, what's going on in the country, in our region, and there's a lot of frank and almost frank and free debate. But it's good that some things get aired and definitely different views. If you asked me in one word what industry across this region, maybe across the world, is doing, what we should do, we're holding our nerve. Because we just have to hold in there for a while, because we're seeing some real seismic changes, and I know that one of the things that there was a debate on, is it about the stakeholders or is it or shareholders or the public? And 10 years ago, it would have been very clear that you're serving, you're offering service, and you also had an economic interest. But all of a sudden, there are a bunch of people who are willing to give away medicines at 40% and give you almost everything free. Is that a business model? So these are things that traditional businesses are now starting to learn. We have to reinvent ourselves. So on one side, while we're holding our nerve, I think it's exciting because now we have to revisit what are the fundamental tenets of what people want. And this is the thing that will bring stronger industry, that we have to understand from within. So the way that I deliver healthcare, maybe I have to do it differently, that I have to be more service oriented, that people will take more charge and come and ask our doctors, So it has to be on demand when they want it, not when we are available, when a doctor is available. It has to be 24/7. It has to be more ubiquitous. And then how we serve them. And so that's like what Amazon actually said. You wait, every day you're more terrified of someone who can give you service better than what you were giving. And everyone is stepping up to that. The second major change that I'm seeing is that none of us can do our business in isolation without thinking of what's our impact on the environment, even in India. We are looking at that to say that, are we making sure that we're doing the right thing? So many business models are changing and we're taking away things that we have to. So this is a big impact across the world, and whether it's the smallest, I'm sure that even in the villages, they're thinking, what is it that we need to take place? And business as such, now that we're going through a business model, will be asked, what is accountability? And those that have been doing traditional old businesses will be asked to say, how are you changing and digitizing and using all the tools available in this world to serve your customer better? And maybe that's the fourth industrial revolution, the convergence and the omni-channelization of everything in business. And so India is extremely exciting because we put all this together and we absorb very fast. And our testing ground is not so we can do stuff at scale. And this is something that, whether it's the Ayushman back within and said, what is it that we need to do to make it work? So maybe there are models that will come up, but we cannot afford not to fail, and then we cannot afford for our country not to be that $5 trillion of that aspirational, because the cost of that is just too much. So if you ask me again, I'd close by saying that we're all holding our nerve.
Oh. So you fully support that a corporation has to have a financial sound basis, and at the same time, and that will be the challenge for each big enterprise in the future, and small, to combine its social responsibility. It also has a social mission with financial sustainability.
Well said.
Now, we have not only newcomers, we have the platform companies, as you are a very successful one, and Gillian. But you came here, and you came from Amsterdam, and now you have spent 2 days here. And based on your discussions here, what are the negative and what are the positive impressions you go home with?
So I think the biggest positive while being here, and that's something that our forum brings people together, even if you visit destinations here in India. So I think that's just a very important factor of travel that people shouldn't forget. And that's something that I really valued being here the past 2 days. I spoke about that travel and tourism is 10% of the global GDP, but in many markets, in all the connections with companies that are out here working very hard to build the supply that is needed, to build the connections that is needed, to make sure that second and third tier cities can be visited as well. And you see also a lot parts are moving, like e-visas is a good example of something that helps. We've seen that lowering certain taxes helps. So you see there's a lot of positive movement to really see how can we reach these ambitions. I think like the Deputy Prime Minister of Singapore also mentioned how important the inter-regional connections are. And that's also something that you hear back and back in travel and tourism as well. Then I think if you think about people are all explorers. And what you also see that travel and tourism really is a catalyst for entrepreneurship. And I've met many companies out here that are doing that and that are showcasing that, which is nice to see. And then also what I've experienced that with these ambitions, you really working together with government and companies that operate in travel and tourism is super crucial to reach these ambitions. There were many conversations that there's still a lot of red tape that needs to be worked on to make sure that actually these ambitions can be reached. Another discussion which needs a lot of attention is sustainability. I think the minister of the Maldives was talking about the issues that are rising with rising sea levels. And there's many more examples where companies, actually everybody needs to really start thinking about how do we deal with that, how do we make sure that we make a change. And I explained also in the opening session that Booking is very active in that. Then also I think, if you think about technology will be the future of travel. And I think Marriott showcased an app where you can check in via the app, you can open the door of your hotel room via the app. So the future technology will improve the experience for customers.
Thank you very much. May I come back to you, Madam Prime Minister? Your country is in some ways a linking pin between South Asia and Southeast Asia. Now, also, if you look at geography, usually the interconnectivity goes north-south and not so much in a horizontal way. And your country would be really in the center if a more horizontal approach is started. Do you see the chance for big, let's say, interregional projects in terms of railways, highways, and so on, to create the connectivity between the ASEAN countries and coming up to India? I don't know. I will first ask you, Madam Prime Minister, and then Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, actually, I always think about it that because of our geographical situation, I feel that yes, Bangladesh can create bridge between East and West. And also in our region like South Asia and Southeast Asia, including China and all countries. So nowadays I am really giving more importance to have connectivity with all our Southeast Asian countries so that we can increase more trade, business. And as you know that SCAP has taken some steps to establish Asian highway and Asian railway connectivity. I really very much appreciate that will open a door for us. And it is very, very important. And I believe that if we join together, like all this area, we have a huge population. Yeah. If you count from China to like all Southeast countries and also South Asian country, all together maybe more than 4 billion people will be there. So it's a huge market. And some of our countries are very resourceful, but some of our countries we have overpopulated. Some, I think with our joint collaboration and plan, we can develop ourselves very quickly, and Bangladesh can play a role to create the connectivity. And that's why I already have started, like I am building international airport, especially in Cox's Bazar. It is on the international air route, so that from east to west, or people want to travel from east to west or west to east or north south, Bangladesh can be the hub of it, and Bangladesh itself can create a connectivity, and that will open a new door. And all the resources, like now we are educating our children. What happened after some education, even a farmer's son or daughter, they don't want to go back to the field to cultivate foods, but they are searching for new job. And that's why I feel that the mechanism and also the technical training, it is very, very important. Now, our agriculture, we cannot carry on the ancient times, system. We should go for mechanical systems so that we can use it. And also, already we have established connectivity about the broadband connection. We have satellite, within the satellite, and also online business, online and technical works, and also different type of university, so that training is a must. But in this training, I think that all our other countries, like South Asian country or our Southeast Asian country, and also even abroad, new technology is coming up. So we want to educate our children this new technology so that they can adapt new technique, they can work. So that way we can develop our production and also diversification of our products, and then we can do the trade, business that way. So Bangladesh has very good opportunity. And as I mentioned earlier, that already we have signed some agreement with all our neighbors. And with our next door neighbor, like in India and Myanmar, well, all the connectivity we had in the past, but somehow it was stopped in 1965. But after that, now I am also taking initiative to open the door, because the communication is very, very important. Physical communication and also ICT communication. Yeah. Digital device, use of digital devices and digital system, online communication, the new technology. Everything is very, very important nowadays to improve trade, business, training, everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Deputy Prime Minister, you may comment also on this question, but I have an additional question, and maybe it's the last one because we are coming to an end of our session. You could define such two types of today of capitalism fighting each other. One is state capitalism, the other one is shareholder capitalism. I would say there is something in between, which I would call stakeholder capitalism. And I would even argue that in the long run, stakeholder capitalism is probably the most sustainable. But I want to hear your point of view, because we have, to a certain extent in the world, also competition of systems. But if you would first comment on the connectivity issue.
Well, thank you. I think certainly we must think of better ways in which we can connect one another, and whether it is air, land, or sea. And I would say that I was speaking to somebody the other day who is in the shipping business, and I said, do you see significant shift in the shipping business in the years ahead? For instance, would it not be better if we built rail links? Can air cargo be an even more efficient way of handling goods? And his answer is no. Actually, sea cargo is still the most energy efficient, because a huge container can carry lots and lots of goods. So in that regard, I would say that I would just add that besides the air connectivity, we should build deeper sea connectivity, where we have ports and more efficient ports for which we can bring in a huge number of goods and services. So we have to explore the various modes, whether it's land, air, and sea, and in particular, how we can complement these various forms, because I think multimodal transport will become more and more important. And besides that, I think there is scope for us to also look at how we can improve the cold chain system, because for exports of fresh food, whether it's seafood, meat, or even vegetables, you need a very good cold chain. And today, with the Internet of Things, with the digital technology, an efficient and reliable cold chain is very important. It's possible and important. And if you think about in the future, as technology of the blockchain improves, I think how we can ensure the provenance of goods will be even more important. Because to say that this product comes from this particular place and it has been properly inspected, it is safe for human consumption, for example, will be very, very valuable. And Prime Minister Hasina mentioned about digital connectivity. I fully agree. So besides the movement of goods and people, the movement of data will be critical in a digital economy. And in that regard, how do we ensure even better movement of data across economies? And in that regard, we should also think about how we can link the movement of data with the movement of goods. During the global financial crisis, I was running our central bank, and out of my window I saw, it was frightening because all the cranes were up. Nothing was moving because trade finance could not be done, trade insurance could not be done because nobody trusted anybody. And it came to a standstill. But today, with digital technology, we can assure each other that yes, the goods have moved from the factory to the port. It is now in the container. It is halfway to the destination. You could then say, let me pay, half, 1/3 or whatever of the goods. And we no longer need to be so dependent. So the movement of the goods and the movement of the information that accompanies it is important. So we are experimenting with this new trade platform called a network trade platform. And we're hoping to experiment with ports around the region where between two customs authorities, they can link up the system, and that will simplify the clearance of goods, that will simplify the payments of systems and even payment of duties. So those are new possibilities that we should explore. Now, going back to your question, Professor Shaw, I think what kind of capitalism will be appropriate? I would say that at the end of it, it is important for us, you characterize it as a stakeholder capitalism. It is important that the economic system serves all stakeholders, not just one group or another group. And you made the comment, Professor Shaw, right at the beginning, that you need economic development so they can have social development. You cannot have social development without economic development. And then you added that in the next phase, economic development will now have to look at sustainable economic development. And part of if you look at the UN's, the needs of different stakeholders very well. You want capital to earn a good return and it can be recycled. We want labor to have a good return so that lives of people can improve. And at the same time, while doing all that, we want to make sure that the environment, which is a silent stakeholder, is also taken care of. Because we are taking care not just of the economic development for ourselves, but for our future generations. How would our children and children's future be affected by what we do today? And inaction on our part today will mean serious consequences for the young many, many years down the road, many generations down the road. So we have to rethink many of our business model. We have to rethink how we can take better care of the environment. And in that regard, I was reading this interesting book by Prime Minister Modi called Convenient Action. As you recall, I think Mr. Al Gore wrote this book about inconvenient truth, the dangers of climate change. Yeah. It's interesting that Prime Minister Modi wrote this book on convenient action. And where he talked about his experience in Gujarat and how he developed the economy while ensuring sustainability. And if I could quote a line from that book, which I thought was very interesting, he said, "Let everyone prosper. Let every country develop. This is not antithetical to a better and safer climate if we take responsible actions. And our experience shows that creating a balance it's not too inconvenient. So I think that was.
I think that's an excellent way to conclude our
Yes.
panel discussions. And I think we have seen here not only high professional people, but when we listened to your story, to your life story, I think we have seen also extraordinary and courageous personalities. So thank you very much for having joined as co-chairs. And before we end, two things. First, please express your acknowledgement for the panel. And then I will ask Børge, my colleague, to give a short rundown of what we have achieved during this meeting.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Schwab, and thank you to the distinguished panel. We have had such a privilege